the way they respond to it can be better.
Okay.
But I don't think that means the president is responsible for something.
Okay, so why did he call representatives while the attack was going on and tried to get them to change their vote, including Kevin McCarthy and Mike Lee?
I mean, he probably saw it as an opportunity.
Which would fucking Christ.
For what? An opportunity for what?
I can't
For
believe
them
this,
to
man.
change their vote.
Oh my god. Yes. So that's called duress. What's going on? What's your take?
He's not responsible for January 6th.
Substantiate
Why?
that, please.
Because there's no evidence that links him to it. If you're gonna say he tweeted some things, he tweeted also that we should remain peaceful. So I think that's very disingenuous.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Well, no one made the argument about tweets, but if we want to go into that, we can also look into his Twitter drafts, which would paint a completely different story.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't. It doesn't. So
your
it doesn't.
drafts,
It doesn't.
right? It doesn't really help. That
Because
is
it would
released to the
establish
public.
intent.
Well, it doesn't. So
It's
here's the
not
thing.
released to
For
the
this thing, here's the thing. For this, it doesn't really require intent. It requires negligence. Like the intent is sort of built in.
No, I think that's insane because then you could just claim negligence for just about anything.
No, so there's a two-part test to this. It's called the Brandenburg test, and so there's that. But Donald Trump absolutely did tell people to go there. He did tell people to act violently, and he knows that because he's had people act violently based off of his rhetoric before.
So where did he tell people to act violently? And
He told people for months on end to fight like hell. You'll never take back your country with weakness. We have to fight, fight, fight. He said it all.
Yeah, that doesn't exactly mean physically fight. I hope you understand that.
Right, but the problem is that he was told numerous times that January 6th could be violent and continued to use that rhetoric.
That's
So
not a
that
rhetoric.
does indicate.
Tell
Yes.
Joe
So
Biden has
if
used the
so
word
if
fight,
you were
right?
told that if a politician says fight like hell, that doesn't implicitly mean it. If a politician is told that it's going to be violent and they continue to antagonize, then yes, that indicates intent. But number two is that even while it was happening, he wasn't trying to stop it. He wasn't trying to call it off. He was doing the opposite. He was using it to call representatives at the Capitol and try and pressure them into changing their vote to make him the official, duly elected leader.
That's actually not what happened because he released a tweet about a couple minutes after the news hit.
About
So
4 hours afterwards.
No, he didn't.
187 minutes is just a couple if you put it into perspective, but yeah, it's about 4 hours later.
If you look at the
That's
whole
not
time of the
exactly-
universe, it's like,
it's not exactly true.
That is exactly true. What did he say
Yeah, it is.
immediately after the Capitol was breached?
You said we have a lot
Mike
of
Pence
people
didn't
in
have the
blue.
guts to do what the American people wanted him to do. Something along those
He
lines.
said we had a lot of people in blue that respect.
Okay,
this
at what
country,
point does he
defend this
call them to
country.
stop?
I told you. I believe it was 5 minutes after. You can look it up and fact check.
Incorrect. It is 187 minutes afterwards. Tweets on Jan 6. Here we go.
yeah, I'm looking up the
Tweeted
tweet.
25 times during it.
Yeah,
You also have the problem of Twitter interfering with those tweets, right?
How did
'Cause
they
if Twitter-
interfere with them?
If Twitter doesn't allow a tweet to go up until 2 hours after, that's also a big problem.
You'd have to prove that they did that.
They're
That's
hard,
speculative. Prove that Twitter actually interfered and delayed the posting of that tweet.
The same Twitter that banned Donald Trump. You think
Excuse
that's
me, can you
far-fetched?
prove that claim, sir?
I believe you can. Look it up.
What am I looking up?
Look up if Twitter
delayed
okay, that
you're
tweet.
the one that's making the argument. Bring something to substantiate that.
Okay.
Okay, it shouldn't be hard.
Why are you so angry, man?
So this is in the morning. Yeah. Okay. What time was January 6th in military time? It's like 4 o'clock, right?
Let's see.
12:49 p.m. Right here. A timeline of it. Right, here's a timeline. Trump tweets, Pence would send the votes back. 1 second. Trump began to speak supporters at 1 o'clock, about 12 to 1. Then we have, 1 second. Concluded remarks. Protesters made their way around the Capitol around 2. From 2 a.m., which would be 1400 hours. He didn't post anything until an hour and a half later, after 1400 hours, which would have been 3 or something. He goes on to say it's a rigged election. He then says that Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what needed to be done. He then goes on to say at 1938, which would be, I don't know, what time is that in military time? I don't know.
7:38.
Yeah, so way later on in the day, please support our police and law enforcement. So this whole thing has happened. He was largely January 6th at 14:15, he said the states want to redo their votes. They found out they voted on a fraud. Legislators never approved. Let them do it, be strong. He said, just happened to find 50,000 ballots last night. He said, the Republican Party, more importantly, our country, needs the presidency more than ever before, the ability to veto whatever. He's talking about states correcting their vote. He said nothing. He said nothing. At 1846, he posted, I think, a video. So 6 o'clock, after 4 hours after this had all happened. So no, he did not tell people to stop.
Well, I mean, when do you want him to tell people to stop? 10 minutes after?
Yeah.
Your claim was that he did it then.
Yeah.
Well,
So now
here's the thing. I believe it was delayed, and there's proof for that.
Okay, where's the proof of that?
I can't find it, but it's there.
'Cause it doesn't exist.
I mean, it definitely exists, man, but
Okay,
no, it
then bring it, man.
I can't. But here's
Why?
the thing. Because it's difficult, man. You look on Google.
Why is it
it's like-
difficult? I'm looking it up in real time just as
I
much as you
know.
are, and I'm not seeing anything. In fact, what I
Hacker
do
hard.
see is video undercuts claim that Twitter censored pro-Trump tweets that day.
Like, do you remember? I can't remember when, but Trump went on CNN and he had an interview with the lady, the CNN lady, and she asked him that question, that why didn't he respond? And he pulled out a tweet that had a timestamp on it and said, I don't know why they took this down. And it wasn't that long. I believe it was only 10 or 15 minutes after.
Yeah,
Not
I don't
after
believe
initially it broke out, but after
I
it
don't
broke in.
believe him. I don't. Number one, I don't believe him. But number two, people were calling and begging him, and he was receiving text messages. And we have Mark Meadows' response, which is that Trump wouldn't budge. So I don't know what you're getting at with this, but
Well, what do you
it
mean
would-
Trump wouldn't budge?
Donald Trump. Yeah, Mark Meadows was contacted by Trump's kids, by Fox News hosts, by representatives. We don't have Donald Trump's. We have Mark Meadows' text messages, and he was in the room with them, and he was saying that Donald Trump's not going to budge.
I don't know what that means. Like, can you
Meaning they were
elaborate?
begging. So his kids, Donald Trump's kids, were begging Donald Trump to stop, that it had gone too far. Why did his kids think that he was responsible, but you don't?
I don't think that it necessarily means they think he was responsible.
Okay, 1 second.
I mean, I don't think it does.
The text messages to Mark Meadows. Right here.
That doesn't necessarily mean responsibility. I guess you could maybe say, like, he could have responded better, but that doesn't exactly mean he's responsible.
1 second. This is from Laura Ingram. So this is after January 6th. 1 second. This is from Laura Ingram. 1 second. This is from Laura Ingram. Hey, Mark. The president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. Laura Ingram to Mark Meadows. This is hurting all of us. Laura Ingram. He is destroying his legacy and playing into every stereotype. We lose all credibility against BLM Antifa crowd if things go south. Carlton Huffman. You've earned a special place in infamy for the events of today. And if you're the Christian you claim to be in your heart, you know that. Laura Ingram, tell him I said to say this. Mick Mulvaney, Mark, he needs to stop this now. Can I do anything to help? Hey, Mark, protesters are literally storming the Capitol, breaking windows on doors, rushing in. Is Trump going to say something? This is Michael Scheer. Representative Barry Loudermilk, it's really bad up here on the Hill. Barry Loudermilk, they have breached the Capitol. Jake Sherman, we are under siege. Jake Sherman, there's an armed standoff at the House chamber door. Jake Sherman, we're all helpless. Representative Will Timmons, the president needs to stop this ASAP. Mario Parker, is POTUS going to take the podium to quell the unrest? Meadows to Rep Loudermilk, POTUS is engaging. Loudermilk, thanks, that doesn't help our cause. Meadows to Timmons, or to Representative Will Timmons, we are doing it. Jonathan Carl to Mark Meadows, what are you going to do to stop this? What is the president going to do? Donald Trump Jr. to Mark Meadows, he's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough. Mark Meadows to Trump Jr., I am pushing it hard, I agree. Rebecca Ball.
Nancy Cook to Mark Meadows. Is he going to
And
say
then
anything to
he
de-escalate
condemned it in
apart
his
from that
video.
tweet?
And then he condemned it in his video.
4 hours later.
4 hours later.
All of this is, all these text messages are happening in the first hour.
Do you know how long it took George W. Bush to respond to 9/11? Like, this just isn't a fair criticism. Like, you're expecting.
Are you
way too
serious?
much.
Yeah, and that wasn't a good
9/11
thing either.
wasn't done by his supporters.
He had no control over it, number one. And number two, he
there's
was
a big
criticized
conspiracy
for
there.
years. He was
No,
criticized
there's
for
not.
years for it. Bro, do you know what the definition of cope is? I mean, do you understand? Like, here's the thing with supporting Biden. I will not contort my logic and gaslight myself to defend him. But here we are. I'm reading you what his kids are saying.
I mean, he's actively funding a genocide, and you're supposed to be like all for peace. So
You're again, yeah, and your president directly engaged in a genocide. So, well,
not really.
yes,
He
he
only
did.
upped
Yemen.
drone strikes 450%. He
Yemen.
only starved 80,000 kids in Yemen.
Actually lowered them by a large percentage compared to
No,
No, he
Obama.
didn't. No, he didn't. But no, he's trying to deflect. No, he didn't. But
I
we're not
know.
deflecting off this.
100% did.
This one has got to go to the mattresses on. They will try to mess up his legacy if it gets worse. Let me find some more.
Tom
Jeremy
Price to Mark
Diamond.
Meadows. POTUS should go on air and diffuse this. Extremely important.
We are, and this is what's funny. This is actually funny. I never read this before. We are hearing, this is Jeremy Diamond. We are hearing DOD denied a request to deploy National Guard at the Capitol. Are you guys involved in that decision, or is it solely the DOD? Jeff Duncan. POTUS needs to calm this shit down. Nancy Cook. He is going to say anything to de-escalate apart from that tweet. Rince Priebus, tell them to go home. Tom Price, POTUS should go on air and diffuse this. Extremely important. This is all well before. This is hours before. This is we're not even at the halfway point.
Yeah, well, people are.
I mean,
allowed
there's
to
more.
protest.
I mean, there's more.
People are allowed to protest, right?
This is not a protest.
Well, I mean,
You're
the
not gonna
BLM,
acknowledge any
the
of the things
BLM,
you've
the
been-
BLM.
No,
and
he's not
Antifa
going to acknowledge
crowd
any of this.
resulted
So again,
in
if
a
Donald
bigger
Trump's
loss of
kids,
life.
Yeah.
No, this is
Cool.
only
If
a
Donald
problem
Trump-
for you, I guess, because
no thanks.
the
So
Capitol
Donald Trump's
got
kids
attacked.
think that he did January 6th, and my question is, why don't you?
They don't, though. That's not evidence that they believe that. All they were trying to do is, if you want the honest opinion, is save their dad's credibility, which makes sense.
So they told, why would they tell him to do that if it wasn't an issue?
It's
If
Why
it
would
was
they
just
think
a
he's
protest.
credible enough for this?
I'll concede this. Here's what I'll concede. The faster a president responds to something and the way they respond to it can be better.
Okay.
But I don't think that means the president is responsible for something.
Okay, so why did he call representatives while the attack was going on and tried to get them to change their vote, including Kevin McCarthy and Mike Lee?
I mean, he probably saw it as an opportunity.
Which would fucking Christ.
For what? An opportunity for what?
I can't
For
believe
them
this,
to
man.
change their vote.
Oh my God. Yes. So that's called duress. That's you applying physical force under fear of life for them to do something. So a crime,
Well, no, this was during the protests.
which would be threatening. Yes. So they're pounding at, these people are pounding on the house doors.
No, that's not a forceful thing.
Yes, it is.
No.
What is
People
not a forceful
breaking in
thing?
is forceful.
So would
yes.
you consider the BLM riots a forceful thing?
We're not deflecting to the BLM line.
Can we
Let's
stay on the topic
here.
of
Man,
JAN6?
it's very funny. Like you only want to stick
Let's
on.
stay on topic. Yes,
It's
I would
not
like
relevant,
to focus.
'cause they're
Yes,
not the
it's
same.
it's irrelevant. It's not the same thing.
How are they
It
not
would be
the
like if I
same?
brought up, because it
Two
would be like
people
if I
felt
brought up,
disenfranchised and
would
went
be
to
like,
go riot.
it would be like if I brought up the Eagles riots as a regards to this. It doesn't have anything to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. It's a what about.
No, two disenfranchised groups of people
Hey,
decided
it's a
to
what
riot.
about? No,
And
no,
and
no, no,
and left
no,
only care.
no,
The
no,
left
no,
only
no,
cares
no,
about
no,
January
no,
6th.
no, no,
Okay,
no, no,
let me
no.
just ask you this. Let me just ask you this one question so as to make the difference.
Go for it.
What is the end game of Black Lives Matter in those protests? What was the goals? What were the goals?
Well, they're based on ill-founded statistics, but
That's
to
not what I'm
lower.
saying. You don't listen.
That
man.
wasn't the question.
Just answer
What
the
was the
question.
end
You don't
game?
know anything about this topic. Just answer the question, please.
To
What's the end game?
lower.
What's the immediate end game for Black Lives Matter?
It's I told you it's ill-founded, but to lower the amount of people of color being killed by police officers. But I mean, it wasn't really true, right? Because Derek Chauvin
Please stop.
wasn't really
Please stop.
responsible
Again,
for
you
that
don't know what
murder.
you're
Okay.
talking about. I guarantee
Is the
you don't know the
strategy
stats.
of
I want to focus
is
on
the
it.
strategy of rioting going to achieve that end game? Was that the
Uh,
desired intent?
Is the strategy? I don't understand what you're saying here. Is it going to achieve it? No, I don't think so. I think
Is
it's
rioting their intention towards reducing numbers of police brutality? Is that what
Yeah.
they wanted to do? Is that their end game?
Yeah.
I
No.
would probably not.
And in no
It was.
way
Yeah.
or form, no way, shape, or form was that their intention.
Bro, cities were on fire. What the fuck do you mean wasn't
Bro,
their intention?
Please pay attention to what Jaden's saying, man, because you're not. If you would, I would appreciate it. Sorry, go ahead, Jaden.
What I'm trying to break down to you is that one group has an intent to do something and an end game and a desire towards doing one thing towards achieving said goal. Rioting was not said part of that process, nor was that a part of their intent
It
towards
was.
achieving said goal.
It was.
Within January 6th, they had
was.
the
Cities
understanding
were
and
on fire. You
desire of
can't say that
disrupting
when
the
cities were on
certification of
fire.
those votes and
You
broke in
can't say
for
that
that
when cities were on fire.
specific purpose
And
of
when
doing
things
that.
were
You
looted.
cannot say that there was that one
when
direct purpose within Black Lives Matter because it's so
You can't say that.
uncoordinated.
You
and
Bro,
can't.
you need to
randomized.
listen. Yes, I can. You would need to provide to us evidence that that was Black Lives Matter intent, because there have 26 million people that showed up to the protests, and 7% of them in any capacity turned violent. So you would have to show that somehow that's what their intent is, right?
So how many people entered the Capitol building?
Several thousand.
Where are we pivoting again?
Wait,
I don't know.
How is that a pivot? I thought this was the main
Yeah,
topic.
Well, we were talking about Black Lives Matter. You believe it's comparable, if not worse. We're trying to gouge your understanding of whether or not there was intent behind said riots and achieving said end
Right.
game.
Well,
The
dude,
answer is
I
no,
just
it's
wanna-
not. And you can't point to one singular person or theme or action that would indicate that it is. We can do
Yeah,
that with
just-
Jan 6.
Cool.
I just want to.
So if I set a building on fire, do you think it's my intention to set the building on fire?
Is it, if you're a part of a group, is that group's
Yes!
intention to set it on fire? It would be your
Yeah.
intention, but you're trying to say Black Lives Matter's intent was to burn down buildings. Black
Well,
Lives
guess what?
Matter was reform. The Republicans that showed up that day and their continued support of the people that were there that day was the intent to overthrow the government. Period. And for some reason, you guys like this to January or to Black Lives Matter, but would you liken this to the riots that the Eagles did when they won the Super Bowl? No, you wouldn't, because the intent's not the same. And I just want to point out, you can't say one's bad and not the other if you think they're both the same. If you think there's no quantifiable difference between them,
one was
then they both
widespread.
have to be bad.
I think one was widespread and resulted
I don't
in
care what
way
you
more
think.
loss of life. It's not that I
Okay,
think
But the question was one planned?
yes.
You're
dude.
talking about 26 million people
Yes,
as opposed.
JAN6TH.
You're talking about 26 million people as opposed to 3,000. But dude, listen.
Exactly.
So
what are you trying to
derailed
say
from
there?
the. Oh my fucking god.
I know.
So lost from the sauce here, bro. So listen, Donald Trump is responsible because Donald Trump knew it was going to be violent, and he used that violence to try and force representatives to change their vote under fear of severe injury.
No, dude, you're reaching. It's a yoga stretch right there, buddy.
I don't. How?
Buddy, because look, you're assuming that you know all the
How?
times. Do you know all the times? So you know the times that these calls were made.
I know that they were made as it was going on. Yes.
Okay, so you know the exact times because you can't just say that.
The times are out there, but yes, it doesn't matter. It happened during it. Donald Trump was pressuring people into trying to overturn their election. I don't know why you're arguing that. You see how you're trying to gymnastic pretzel your way out of that. But Donald Trump called up. Please, thanks. Donald Trump. Please,
It's
please
context.
listen.
Don't be a cunt. Listen.
Yes, I'm aware.
Stop talking.
Thanks. During it, stop talking, please. Thanks. I'm gonna have to move on. During it, he called up representatives as they're begging for him to stop, and he's telling them they need to stop and change their vote. Your
Cool.
argument is that there wasn't intent.
Context.
And if he had here, hold on a second.
Context would be
If he,
that-
there's no context.
Bro,
Listen,
there's
man,
a
you're
hell of a lot
lost.
of
You're just bullshit. You're just blowing smoke. You're just
No, I'm not
making shit
blowing
up as you
smoke.
go.
Look, if they
Yeah,
were
you are.
outside the building, then you can kiss my ass with threats. Okay, there's no threat of
They were
bullshit.
inside the building, and they were inside
You
the
need
building.
to
They were
provide
begging
me
him to
with
call it
proof
off.
of
And
that,
dude,
man.
listen. Hey, listen for a second, okay? Because you don't know this. They
No,
weren't
you
even
need to
inside
provide
the
me with proof
building.
of that, man.
Please listen.
No,
Stop.
man.
You're gonna go. Stop. You're gonna go, man. They were inside the building. They had already got inside the building before the session had even ended. So you can't make the argument that, oh, were they outside or they were in the building because the session hadn't even stopped. They hadn't even stopped. They haven't even moved Mike Pence. They were in the building and then moved Mike Pence. So that argument doesn't make any sense.
You don't have any proof of that, though.
What do you mean? Yes, we do. We know when it happened. They broke
Provide
in.
Provide it.
They broke.
Provide
Okay,
the proof.
awesome, cool. Stop. I love how he hasn't provided a single fucking thing
I know.
this whole debate. I just want to point out
Where's your proof
for
that
you,
Twitter
like you
censored his
said,
tweets?
right? For you, it's like you said. Oh, I can't find that, but it's out there. So can I just say the same thing?
Right.
Second.
So I got a question for you, man.
Maybe let me answer this one.
No, you can multitask, or your
I
buddy
don't think I
can.
want to.
You know, like what
don't
do
think
you
he
think?
wants
Like, you know, Trump wins. Like, what are you gonna do?
I don't. It's a non-answer. I mean, again, it has nothing to fucking do with what we're talking about. Nothing.
It's
Well, I mean,
random.
like, how would it make you feel?
I don't
How would
care.
it make me feel? I don't give a shit. I don't know what you're not. Listen, you guys
mean,
guess.
clearly you care.
But dude, it's a moot point. You guys guess. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do if Biden wins? What are you gonna do if Biden wins?
Well, I mean, I'm here now, right?
Well, what are you gonna do?
What do you mean? What am I've been doing for the past 4
What are you
years? It's
gonna
kind of
do?
been hell, but you know,
What are you gonna do?
I'm not gonna do anything. He's here right now.
Let me ask you, what do you think we're gonna do?
Probably be really saddened for a week, and then you know your life will probably improve in little ways that you won't even seem to care or notice, and then world peace
Okay,
will
I'm
come.
gonna give you one chance. Can you tell me 3 good things that Trump did? This is your one chance.
Cool. Lowered tax rates. We had world peace.
Lower
under
tax
him.
rates was done. Lower tax rates was done by Paul Ryan. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go one by one. I'm gonna go one by one. Thank you. 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 I'm
Silence.
gonna go one by one. Thank you. You're gonna be quiet. You're gonna go.
No.
The tax rate cut was Paul Ryan. It wasn't Donald Trump. We did not have world peace. Donald Trump increased the drone program by over 400%. Donald Trump killed 85,000 children in Yemen. Donald Trump is the direct cause of the restart of the Kurdish-Turkish war. Donald Trump was not a good person when it came to wars and presidency, period. We did not have world peace. You're delusional. There was bombings going on in
We're on the brink
Palestine.
of World War III. So
I know. I'm sure you think that because you're low information. Yeah.
let's answer your things one by one. So you said, the guy who wrote the bill is responsible for that. Yeah, he signed it into play. So that's not really a high IQ way of thinking, right? Because Biden would take credit for something if somebody else wrote it.
Wait, then why do you guys call it the Biden crime bill?
So that's really low IQ and disingenuous.
So why do you
why do you guys call it the Biden crime bill if he didn't sign it?
I'm done. Go away. I don't want to talk to you.
Oh, he's gone.
So listen, bud, and people that have watched this live on the regular, okay? People that have watched this live on the regular, they have frequently heard me say Joe Biden signed a bill, but was not behind it. Frequently, I have said that Joe Biden signed this bill. However, he's not the one that's predominantly responsible for it. I've said that previously. There are ones he is responsible for. Joe Biden is not responsible for the PACT Act. Joe Biden pushed for the PACT Act for Republicans after they denied it, but he was not the initial one to push for the PACT Act. He did initially push, like, not the act itself, but for the idea because his kid was involved in that. The Chips and Science Act was his idea. The Infrastructure Bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, both his ideas. The American Recovery Plan, his idea. You are giving him credit and saying, well, he did this thing that, by the way, benefited him. He gave himself a tax break. And you're like, wow, that's a spectacular thing to do. 80% of the benefit goes to the rich. So no, not particularly something that you can give him credit for. There are things, that ain't one of them.